I get it. Life feels like it's just passing you by, right? Another year gone, and those dreams still on the back burner. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, but let's be honest, tomorrow never really comes, does it? I've been there too, waiting for that perfect moment, thinking things will just fall into place someday. But you know what? Someday is a dangerous word. It's the enemy of progress. And trust me, I've learned the hard way that someday isn't a day of the week. But the good news is, just by clicking on this video, you've already taken the first step. You're done with the excuses. You're ready to take action. And that's where the real magic happens. But I know it's not easy. Starting is the hardest part. We all have that voice in our head telling us to wait, to play it safe. But let's make a pact today. No more waiting, no more holding back, because the truth is, there's no perfect moment. The only time you have is right now, so let's make the most of it. I'm going to share what worked for me and how you can finally start moving towards your goals. So are you ready? This is your sign to go all in. Why you're stuck in procrastination and how to break free. Let's talk about what really holds you back from going all in. Procrastination. We've all been there. You've got a project due tomorrow, but you swear you had a week left. Or maybe you skipped the gym because you don't feel like it right now. It's easy to push things aside, telling yourself there's plenty of time. But let me tell you, that's a trap. Procrastination often stems from thinking we need to feel inspired or motivated to start. I used to think that way too. I'd wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, or just the right amount of energy. But the truth is, the perfect moment rarely comes. If you wait until you're in the mood to tackle tasks, you'll always end up waiting. This is why tasks pile up and deadlines creep up on you. And that's why you're stuck in that same old cycle that needs to break. Another reason we procrastinate is that we underestimate how long tasks will take. We think a project will be quick, but end up scrambling at the last minute. It's a classic case of misjudging time. I've faced this too, where I thought I had plenty of time and ended up in a mad rush. Fear of failure can also play a big role. Sometimes we avoid starting because we're afraid of not doing a good job. It's easier to put something off than to face the possibility of falling short. So what's the solution? Start small. Stop waiting for the right time or perfect mood. As the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So procrastination is not just about time management. It's about overcoming your own mental hurdles. By taking action now, even if it's just a small step, you're already moving forward. And that's the real key to beating procrastination. Now let's talk about the real deal. How do you start today? The answer is pretty simple. Self-discipline. The power of self-discipline. Self-discipline. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Trust me, I've been there. There are days when the last thing I want to do is stick to my routine, whether it's eating right, hitting the gym, or tackling my to-do list. Self-discipline means pushing through those moments when you'd rather stay comfortable. It's about showing up for yourself and your goals, even when motivation is low. I know I won't always feel pumped to work on these videos every day, but if I want to see progress, I have to push through. And that's what's been helping me honestly. The shift you need to make is understanding that self-discipline isn't about feeling motivated all the time. It's about making the decision to act, regardless of your feelings. As James Clear says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So here are a few tips to help you get started today, to help you go all in. Step 1. Silence your inner critic. Let's talk about one of the biggest obstacles to getting things done, your mind. Often, it's our own thoughts that hold us back. We let ourselves talk ourselves out of doing what we know we should be doing. It's all too easy to listen to that voice saying, you don't really feel like it right now, and then give in to laziness. One effective way to combat this is by shutting down the part of your mind that loves to make excuses. It's actually one of the few times I'd suggest not overthinking things. Instead, try focusing on something simple to quiet your mind. My favorite tool for this is meditation. Now, don't worry. I'm not talking about anything too mystical or complicated. You don't need to clear your mind of every single thought or dive into deep spiritual practices. Just start with something basic. All you need to do is focus on your breathing. Sit quietly, close your eyes, take deep breaths, and pay attention to the rhythm of your breath. By concentrating on something simple and calming, you give less power to that inner voice that says you don't feel like working. Meditation helps create a mental space where you can tune out distractions and stay focused. focused. As you do this, you'll find that the urge to procrastinate becomes easier to manage. It's not about becoming a Zen master. It's about using a straightforward technique to get out of your own way. The goal is to turn down the volume on the excuses so you can turn up the volume on productivity. Step 2. Just dive in and get started. Next, you have to tackle a common problem: overthinking yourself out of starting a task. It's easy to get stuck in the planning phase and never actually dive in. We think ourselves into paralysis, convinced that we need to feel a certain way before we start. Here's a simple trick to break that cycle: just dive in. It might sound too easy, but it works. As the saying goes, the hardest part is starting. Once you start, you'll be surprised how quickly things begin to come together. Set a timer for just 1 minute. Tell yourself that you only need to work on the task for that short time. After the minute is up, you can go back to whatever you were doing before. Most of us can manage to start something for just 1 minute, and often once that minute is up, you'll find that you're in the flow and want to keep going. It's amazing how starting is often the hardest part, but once you're moving, it gets easier. This approach takes the pressure off feeling motivated or inspired. It's about tricking your mind into action without needing a huge boost of willpower. Give it a try. Set that timer, dive in, and see how quickly you can shift from thinking about starting to actually making progress. Step 3. Focus on how to start, not if you should. When it comes to getting things done, one of the biggest hurdles is often our own decision-making process. We tend to get caught up in whether or not we feel like doing something. But what if you stopped letting your feelings dictate your actions? Instead, focus on the how of getting started. Imagine you're trying to go for a run. Instead of asking yourself if you feel like running, think about the practical steps involved. What do you need to wear? Do you need to lace up your sneakers or grab a water bottle? When you concentrate on these details, you shift your focus from whether you want to do it to how you can get it done. This approach helps you bypass the paralysis that comes from overthinking. It's less about motivation and more about taking concrete steps. For example, instead of debating if you should work on a project, think about what's the first small action you can take. Do you need to open your laptop or jot down some notes? When you stop asking yourself if you feel like starting and start focusing on the steps required to begin, you make it easier to move from planning to action. As Albert Schweitzer wisely said, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. So next time you find yourself stalled, just ask, how can I start this now? Let the answer guide you to action, not your fluctuating motivation. But that's not all, which leads us to our 4th step. Now, if I were you, I'd be jotting these points down in my personal journal so I don't forget these steps. Oh, and do you have a personal journal where you just scribble anything you want? Get that journal and jot these points down. Step 4. Shape the path for success. When we're struggling to take action, one of the most effective strategies is to make it easier for ourselves. This is what I like to call shaping the path. It's all about setting up your environment to support your goals and reduce friction. For instance, if you want to go to the gym more regularly, keep your workout clothes right by the door. That way, you're less likely to skip the workout because you can't find your gear. Having everything in place eliminates unnecessary obstacles. Think about what's holding you back and remove those roadblocks. For me, I'd write down a checklist the previous night so when I wake up, I instantly start working on them one by one. The goal is to make the desired actions as easy as possible and the undesired ones harder. If you're trying to reduce your screen time, consider moving the remote control to a less convenient spot. If you're working on a big project, break it into smaller, manageable tasks and keep those tasks visible. Have you heard the quote, "The best way to predict the future is to create it"? Well, you've heard it now, so start working in it. Step 5. Get a good role model. This is something I feel is absolutely necessary. Finding a role model is an absolute game changer. Think about someone who embodies self-discipline and determination. Hey, I could be your role model too. Who knows, I might just already be. But personally, I feel like C.T. Fletcher is one such person. His intense focus and refusal to accept excuses are truly inspiring. Bruce Lee is another great example. His dedication to mastering his craft and pushing beyond limits is legendary. Role models show us what's possible when we commit to our goals. They don't get bogged down by excuses. If C.T. Fletcher can lift weights like he's battling gravity itself, or Bruce Lee can train tirelessly to become a martial arts legend, then we can definitely tackle our own challenges. When we look at these individuals, it's clear that their success isn't about feeling motivated every day. It's about showing up and putting in the work, no matter how they feel. As Bruce Lee famously said, "I'm not afraid of the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I am afraid of the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." By following a role model's example, you get a front row seat to their journey. You see firsthand how they overcome obstacles and stay committed. This can be incredibly motivating and help you stay focused on your own path. So if you're finding it tough to stay disciplined, look up to those who've achieved what you're aiming for. Let their success light the way for you. Remember, if you're waiting for the perfect moment or the right feeling to get started, it might never come. Now, before you go, let me ask you, why did the procrastinator bring a ladder to the bar? Because they heard the drinks were on the house, but they still didn't get around to climbing it. So don't let your goals stay on the top shelf. Start climbing now and make those dreams come true. Now, jokes apart, who is your role model? Comment down below. And if you think someone else could benefit from this video, don't forget to share it with them. After all, we have to ascend together.